If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. The Zone of Interest is a 2023 historical drama film written and directed by Jonathan Glazer, loosely based on the 2014 novel by Martin Amis. It was a co-production between the United Kingdom and Poland, starring Christian Friedel and Sandra Hüller as the German Nazi commandant Rudolf Höss and his wife Hedwig. It follows a pair as they strive to build a dream life for their family in a new home right next to the Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II. The Zone of Interest premiered at the 76th Cannes Film Festival on the 19th of May 2023 to critical acclaim, winning both the Grand Prix and Free Pritzker Prize, and was named one of the top 5 international films of 2023 by the National Board of Review. It won 3 BAFTAs, including Film Not in an English Language, and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director for Glazer, and 3 Golden Globe Awards. The Zone of Interest was 10 years in the making. After completing Under the Skin, Glazer became intrigued by the then not yet published Martin Amis novel, The Zone of Interest. He optioned the novel after reading it. Paul and Hannah Doll, the novel's 2 main characters, were loosely based on Rudolf Höss, the long-serving commandant of Auschwitz concentration camp, and his wife Hedwig. Glazer opted to use the historical figures instead and conducted 2 years of extensive research into the Hösses. He made several visits to Auschwitz and was profoundly affected by the sight of the Höss residence. He collaborated with the Auschwitz Museum and other organizations and obtained special permission to access the archives, where he examined testimonies provided by survivors and individuals who had been employed by the Höss household. By piecing together these testimonies, Glazer gradually constructed a detailed portrayal of the individuals connected to the events. He also consulted historian Timothy Snyder's 2015 book Black Earth, The Holocaust as History and Warning during his research. Friedel first met Glazer and producer Jim Wilson in London 2019 for the role of Rudolf Höss. Although daunted by Glazer and Wilson's description of their film project, Christian Friedel felt compelled to take on the role. Friedel, who had first met Hüller in 2013 while acting together in the historical drama Armer Frau, recommended her for the role of Rudolf's wife Hedwig. Hüller was first sent an excerpt of the script and an argument between Rudolf and Hedwig presented out of context before learning the project's nature as a film about the Holocaust. Although she had resolved never to play a Nazi, Hüller was convinced after reading the full script and meeting with Glazer, believing that he shared and addressed her concerns about how to properly depict Nazism on screen. Hüller's own dog, a black Weimaraner, plays Dilla, the Höss's family dog, in The Zone of Interest. The young Polish girl in the film is inspired by a woman named Alexandria, whom Glazer met during his research. As a 12-year-old member of the Polish resistance, she used to cycle to camp, leave apples for the starving prisoners. As in the film, she discovered a piece of music written by a prisoner. A prisoner named Joseph Wolf survived the camp and was one of the first people to document the atrocities of the Holocaust, a cause he dedicated his life to. Alexandra was 90 years old when she met Glazer and died shortly after. The bike the film uses and the dress the actress wears both actually belong to her. The original Höss house had been a private residence since the end of the war. Production designer Chris Odley spent several months converting a derelict home beyond the camp wall in a replica of the Höss residence and started planting the garden in April 2021 so it would be in bloom when filming began. Principal photography began in Auschwitz in summer of 2021 and lasted approximately 55 days. Glazer and cinematographer Lukas Zal embedded up to 10 cameras in and around the house and kept them running simultaneously with no crew on set. The approach, which Glazer dubbed Big Brother in a Nazi House, allowed the actors to improvise and experiment extensively during filming. Glazer and Zal aimed for a modern look and did not wish to anesthetize Auschwitz. As a result, only practical natural lighting was used. Glazer did not want the atrocities occurring inside the camp to be seen, only heard. He described the film's sound as the other film, arguably the film. To that end, sound designer Johnny Brunn compiled a 600-page document containing relevant events of Auschwitz, testimonies and witnesses, and a large map of the camp so that the distance and echoes of the sounds would be properly determined. He spent a year building a sound library before filming began, which included sounds of manufacturing machinery, crematoria, furnaces, boots, period-accurate gunfire, and human sounds of pain. He continued building a library well into the shoot and post-production. Most of Mika Levy's score went unused as Glazer and Byrne did not want to have the film sweetened or dramatized by it. The music Levy wrote for the prologue remained, as did soundscapes created for several sequences and the sound collage for the epilogue. The sound of constant revving of an unseen motorcycle heard from the distance several times throughout the outdoor scenes is in fact from real life. The main character of the movie, Auschwitz commander Rudolf Höss, hired a person just to rev the engine in order to overshadow the horror of screams and gunshots coming from the camp. Sir Martin Amis, author of the source novel, died on May 19, 2023, the same day the film had its world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. In one scene, Mrs. Höss describes her friends getting a coat from Canada while mocking another woman who thought she meant the sovereign country of Canada. Canada was in fact a name given to Auschwitz, to the vast storehouse of goods confiscated from the prisoners. Just a little bit about the real Rudolf Höss. Rudolf Franz Ferdinand Höss was born on the 25th of November 1901. He was a German SS officer, and from May 1940 until November of 1943, and again from the 8th of May 1944 to the 18th of January 1945, he was the commandant of Auschwitz concentration camp. He tested and implemented means to accelerate Hitler's order to systematically exterminate the Jewish population of the Nazi-occupied Europe, known as the Final Solution. On the initiative of one of his subordinates, Karl Friedel, Höss introduced the pesticide Zyklon B to be used in gas chambers, where more than 1 million people were killed using this method. Höss was hanged in 1947 following the trial before the Polish Supreme National Tribunal. During his imprisonment, at the request of the Polish authorities, Höss wrote his memoirs, released in English under the title Commandant of Auschwitz, the autobiography of Rudolf Höss. Now, to say The Zone of Interest is a haunting film would be an understatement. This film examines the callous and calculated way the Höss family went about trying to create an ordered existence, all the while living next to one of the most notorious Holocaust camps, namely Auschwitz. The film takes a cold, hard look at the everyday, mundane aspects of having a normal life and a family, whilst living next door to unbearable, unforgivable brutality and cruelty. In many ways, this can be sort of seen as a landmark movie. It's hugely important, unafraid to ask the difficult questions, and in many ways quite relevant to today, and how it reminds us that we should be learning from history, trying to prevent such abhorrent, horrible things from ever happening again. I think one of the most striking aspects of the film is that you never actually see the Holocaust taking place. Rather, you just hear it. You can almost smell it. You can almost feel it, and it creates this unease and tension throughout the air as you watch the film. In many ways, it impacted me more harshly than even other Holocaust films I'd watched. The film is made with a self-imposed discipline. It lacks any sentimentality and speaks to the profound respect that Glazer really took upon working a story around this most awful of subjects. My only gripe with the film is sometimes it becomes a little bit too abstract. I didn't like the soundtrack, for example, and some moments felt just drawn out and too long. Also the choice of shooting the Polish girl, who of course was giving apples to the prisoners. But shooting it now almost as if we were watching it with night vision goggles, I found it to be too abstract and a strange choice, and lost some of the gravitas of what the scene really meant. Don't get me wrong, this is a superb piece of filmmaking. It's hard-hitting, it's groundbreaking, and it's so beautifully done. I just felt that Glazer maybe tried to be a bit too artistic and too clever with something that is so serious and down to earth. I mean, even the fact that the likes of Steven Spielberg have praised the film, calling it one of the best Holocaust films ever made, just speaks to the gravitas in which this film will hit you. And through the painstaking framing and sound design, the horrors just engulf you and take you to the edge, and highlights the depravity, the psychopathic tendencies of which these Nazis, in particular now of course Rudolf Höss, went about his job as if it were just another day at the office, and how his family, most particularly his wife, decided to make a home of this house next door, build a garden that she was proud of, and build a life that she equally was fond of. Hedwig carries on her life in complete deniability. Either that or she's a complete and utter psychopath. The children are blissfully unaware, even playing with some of the gold teeth that they find from next door. And the lasting impression of showing the actual Auschwitz as it is today as a museum was a bold and interesting choice that I thoroughly agreed with. The acting in this is superb. Once again, Sandra Hüller turns out another stellar performance here as Hedwig, as does Christian Friedel playing the maniacal Rudolf Höss. Look, one can never describe nor do justice to the absolute barbarity, brutality, and cruel horrendousness of the Holocaust. It's a time in history that should never be forgotten, albeit it's hard sometimes to even reconcile and understand completely. What The Zone of Interest does is it captures many aspects to this horrific time. It now goes behind the scenes of not one of the prisoners, but one of the actual men perpetrating it. It's a cold, harsh, blatant look at the almost unbelievable depravity of which these men went about following orders, as they'd like to say. Albeit, like I said, sometimes the film maybe crosses over in too abstract a territory, I still found this a very powerful piece of filmmaking, superbly made, yet incredibly haunting. From its unique direction, fantastic sound design, and superb performances from the cast, The Zone of Interest gets a 9 out of 10.